February, March, April, 3 months later, it's time to catch up on Captain America Brave New World. Due to inclement weather, it was February, I wasn't able to make it to theaters to watch the new Sam Wilson Captain America movie. When it released on digital, I thought, hey, this is a way to beat the movie to physical, get the review out before it comes to the store. And so after the open rolls, I will break down my thoughts on Captain America Brave New World. He couldn't be here, but Brandon loves guessing my score because we've done so many of these movie reviews and he's watched them and we've hung out and he knows my taste. And so Brandon guessed before I watched the movie that I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars and think it was fine because, as he put it, the movie it doesn't go too far. And so, with that, it made me wonder, and especially after watching the movie, what was it that made the film get such harsh things said about it before and during its theatrical release? And I think that it really comes down to the mistake of not Sam, Anthony Mackie saying in an interview that this Captain America doesn't really represent America, but the whole world. And that idea, I think, is very much one of the catalysts to people looking down upon the film generically. Let's say that he put it this way. Although, let's be real, it was also always the case with Steve. Captain America is the guiding force for America going out and helping the world. How can anybody look down on that? Because Steve Rogers in the first Avenger wasn't like he was only captaining America. He was, fighting Hydra wherever they popped up and knocked them down. So I think that had Mackie maybe phrased it better, but also it's the idea that people very much, I feel like, are far too in the weeds with it all. Like, if you're judging a movie by something a person says, or subsequently, let's say that it was never what Anthony Mackie said, but rather other products that Disney puts out, and you're like, oh, I'm judging this Disney product by other Disney products. It's like, well, that's not exactly what I would consider fair, if you will. I don't really have a overarching negative. I mean, I would have liked for the Serpent Society to have a more flamboyant look. Something eye-catching, something engaging, and not just flak jackets and, tan rough pants or whatever. I would have preferred the leader to look more like the leader, but neither of those things are deal breakers for me. They were subdued, whereas I would have liked a little extra. Because even Batroc the Leaper in Winter Soldier, he was subdued, but he also had pops of color, which is something Batroc was known for in the comics. And so I just thought that the Serpent Society could have used a little extra. But as far as Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, or Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, I thought they had a good dynamic. Sam trying to be stoic and serious, and Torres, being excited. He reminded me a lot of Rhodey in his approach, where he's like, because in the first Iron Man road, he was like, oh, maybe next time I'll wear the other suit, and then Terrence Howard never comes back. But in this, Torres is always wanting to volunteer and help and be there for his friend. And then when we get I'm gonna say spoiler, but when we get the Goose moment where Maverick and Goose, Cap and Falcon are in the dog fight, I was like, oh man, are they gonna take him out to prove a point? But he makes it in the end, and we even close out on them having a bonding moment, which I think is also good for the sake of keeping the characters around and making them people we care about. Now, if one of the complaints, I don't know if this is the case, but if one of the complaints is the Red Hulk was so prominent in promotion, and yet all of the promotion is basically his scenes from the film. I'll give people that if that is a complaint, but I'll also say, for anybody who reads the comics, I've long known that Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross is the Red Hulk, and so if you're worried that it was given away in the promotion, it's like, well, yeah, because people who know Red Hulk and Thunderbolt Ross are one and the same aren't surprised by this, and also the leader wasn't a part of the promotional material. He was the big reveal. He was the character that it's like, oh, he's pulling the strings. And I actually thought it was smart that they had Stearns locked up for 16 years, because that's one of the biggest worries I had for the reveal, was like, how are you going to explain how this guy's been gone for such a long period of time? But easy, when General Ross has the power to put him in a black site and manipulate him to make things go the way that he wants. And so I thought that worked out just fine, or good enough to make me comfortable with it. And with that, I was like, yeah, that's, again, I think that he could have looked better, but at least he didn't look exactly like Samuel Stearns. That's definitely a route they could have taken, and they didn't, so that's in and of itself a positive. Because how many times in the TV show world, whether it be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Flash, or whatever, Arrow, they would just make characters that should have been over the top very regular. And so that's not what they did here. They subdued the size of the leader's cranium, but it was still prominent and disfigured. Thank you for being here at Mr. Super Oz. This video is going out, and this channel only exists because I, Oz, founded Gamble Comics, which first release was Everlasting Survivors, a 68-page graphic novel called All Day Long, available now. Follow the link in the description that will take you to gamblecomics.com. While there, you can get hats, shirts, posters, much, much more, but most importantly, the story itself. One of my biggest takeaways from the film is how it felt as though Falcon and the Winter Soldier was downplayed, the TV show, I mean. Now, we did have Isaiah Bradley show up in the movie from the show, and, Bucky makes a small appearance. But my thing is, I felt like most of the purpose of the show was kind of, let's just say, if not forgotten, made lesser. And with that, and I've thought this for a long time, I think that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier should not have been a show. It should have been a movie. And so much so that if it had been Captain America Lineage, or Captain America Legacy, or, I don't know, Captain America Fight for the Shield, whatever you want to call it. Even if you called it Captain America Flag Smashers, right? That'd be something to catch your attention, because it'd be like, oh, what's this? My point is, I think that if it had been a movie instead of a TV show on Disney Plus, I think that they may have been more apt to reference it and be comfortable acknowledging its existence, because I feel like the reason Isaiah's story was put down to like 2 or 3 sentences of explanation was because they assumed people didn't watch the show. And maybe they're right. Maybe they know who didn't, and how viewed it was. And outside of the Isaiah Bradley story, basically Sam only acknowledges the show by talking about assuming he should have taken the super soldier serum, but without watching it, you'd be like, "What are you talking about? How would you have even got your hands on the super soldier serum?" Because if you didn't watch the show, you wouldn't know that there were new variants out there instead of the one that Steve took back in World War II. And so, like I said, a few sentences acknowledged the show existence, but mostly it was just put to one side. And I just think that it would have behooved the character of Sam Wilson. I think it would have benefited everyone had that show been a movie instead of a series. But this isn't about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's about Brave New World, and I gave it a good 4 out of 5 stars because it could have been more. Could have been more punchy. I think that definitely a little more active and engaging in that way, but I think all of the characterizations were spot on. Like, outside of Harrison Ford being old and being brought in because William Hurt passed away, I think that Harrison Ford did a good job. But my worry is that will we even get any more Thunderbolt Ross because of Harrison Ford being up in age? And I loved Betty Ross showing up. I thought that her tying things together from the Edward Norton Hulk movie was very nice. And so much of this cast, whether it be Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, Betty Ross, or the leader, all of these characters made me really think that Bruce Banner would be here or could be here, but didn't end up being in the film. But yeah, I have good feelings about the way things are going. Like, there was no obvious, like, in your face anti-American concepts. Like I said, the interview where Anthony Mackie says that Cap's not just for America. Well, like, yeah, he's never only been for America. And yeah, so I would have liked more Bucky, but it's because I think that he's a great character. But his cameo I thought was interesting, and it makes me more intrigued to even consider watching Thunderbolts than I was before. But yeah, overall, I just don't know precisely why this thing got negative feelings, because, like, let's say for the Eternals, for instance, I got the complaints for it, which were it's too long, there's too many characters, and things don't make sense. This wasn't too long, there weren't too many characters, and things did make sense. Like, him. So I welcome people to comment below if you had a specific complaint about the film, because I'm curious as to what it was. Like I said, outside of the now, if Seth Rollins was playing the same Sidewinder character from the Serpent Society as Giancarlo Esposito, yeah, Giancarlo Esposito, I think is his name, then I think that Rollins' version would have definitely been that more over the top. Now, that's if Colby Lopez is playing the character like Seth Rollins plays or Colby Lopez plays the Seth Rollins character with the bright colors and the cackle and the whatever, then he would have definitely been more Serpent Society that I would have recognized as far as just bright, colorful, and crazy. But I'll admit, I haven't seen Seth Rollins play a character that isn't Seth Rollins adjacent either. I mean, I've seen him play Tyler Black, but same basic concept. So, if those two were playing the same Serpent Society character, then obviously Esposito is the better actor. But I'm just very curious as to what it would have been like had Rollins had that big heavy in the Serpent Society as his follower, who was serious, whereas Rollins is very easy to be amused by and not necessarily serious. So, in the hierarchy of the Captain America films, I still think that Winter Soldier is head and shoulders above them all. I think Civil War is below that because there's just so many standout moments in it that it's great. I mean, like it's in that upper echelon of Marvel movies. And First Avenger established Steve's character so well that it's still in the top three. And Brave New World is the least of the Captain America movies, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. And I'm very curious to see what will happen if Sam does get a full-on trilogy, because I think that I'd be down for that.